What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Blazers Uprise Live here on a Monday night. I hope your start of the week has gone well. We're going to be talking about contract extensions today, and we're going to talk about the Nurkic article that Jason Quick did that has some people up in arms for whatever reason and has other people excited. I think you guys probably already know which side we lie on. It's a bit different than the last 2 years of this channel has gone with a lot of things. It seems like we are the positive people now, the optimistic people. So we'll give you our takes on some quotes from that article. Eric has that all prepared. You can hear the paper. He has it ready to go for us. So good job, Eric. What's going on, y'all? Hopefully, if you caught my schedule breakdown, hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you found it insightful. We can maybe talk a little bit about that if y'all want. But if not, after this stream, definitely go check out the schedule breakdown. I put in a ton of time into that. So I hope it's something that is insightful. Eric, is there anything else that you want to cover tonight?
No, we can always get to questions from chat. I do want to say something to Shaggy Squid while he's in here. Don't be talking about signing trades with Nurkic already, man.
Yeah, that's not what this stream is going to be.
No, it was not from this stream. It was from something on Twitter.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe he was saying.
But
I
didn't want to reply to the thing he replied to.
Yeah.
So I'll call him out here.
You guys know the rule. Talking sign and trades like that, where you're sign and trading your player elsewhere for something, doesn't make sense. It never has. And it goes back to the days of people saying, yeah, let's just sign and trade Hassan Whiteside for $15 million a year to the Spurs so we can get LaMarcus Aldridge, right? And we told you guys that's not going to happen. That has no chance of happening. It's not realistic. And what happens? Hassan Whiteside signs for the minimum with the Sacramento Kings. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, just signing trades with Nurkic. We're not going to be talking about signing trades. We're going to be talking about potential contract extensions instead. So that'll be that topic. Eric is... You've had a long past 2 days, man. I don't know if you want to...
Sure.
I'm sure we have people watching the stream that are going off to college or whatnot. You have been scrambling.
Yeah, so yesterday was the move-in day for my oldest daughter at Oregon State, and just get down there at the or a little before the assigned time, and there was like a 3-hour wait in the car. So we'd already been driving down there. It was kind of long, and then a bunch of other stuff happened, and everything else went well. Got into her dorm and all that. Drive all the way home, and literally pulling into my neighborhood, get a call from her saying that she accidentally left her wallet in the car, and I had to then drive all the way back down, or not all the way. She met me a little portion of the way, but
she better.
It had her school ID in it, which is required. That's how she gets in and out of her dorm building. So what should have been a pretty easy day of moving her down just turned into like an all-day ordeal, and I got back at like midnight last night, and then have to get up early on weekdays for the little kids to get them up to school and stuff like that. So yeah, working on not a lot of sleep today, but it's all good. Such is the life of a father.
Yeah. How far of a drive is that for you? That's what?
Well, to Corvallis, it's about like an hour and a half to hour and 45 minutes, depending on the traffic. That time of night, it's not too bad. But like I said, she was able to meet me a partial way there.
That's the worst, though, is when you like drive a ways and then you have to like retrace your step and just like all that progress you did driving, you have to undo for no reason, you know? So
it wouldn't have been so bad if we weren't sitting in the car like while we were there for most of the day too.
Yeah, so you had a day like I do when I do DoorDash and work, so I'm just constantly in the car. But I'm making money, not forgetting my wallet, you know? It's the other way around. So at least I'm productive.
The funniest part is like about a half an hour before I left, I told her, okay, so you're an adult now. You have to have your ID to get into your dorm building. So that needs to go with you everywhere. You need to have your ID and your debit card. Like everywhere you go, you should have that on you. If you don't want to carry a purse, like you should have like a little clip for your, so those can go into your phone or whatever. And so I just got done talking to her about that, and then I get home and she forgot her wallet like a half an hour later. It's like,
Yeah. Hopefully that makes it stick in her mind. Your mom
right.
says you should have called her.
Why?
I don't.
I wasn't gonna make my mom drive down there
Yeah.
late at night. Yeah.
Yeah.
I ended up going to In-N-Out and there was no line, so it kind of worked out.
Yeah. Make it worthwhile for something.
Yeah.
So yeah, but now you get to relax with the community and we get to talk basketball. So appreciate everybody tuning in. That's I didn't know the full extent of that. I just heard Eric just told me before the stream started. He said I've had a long past couple days, and yeah, and now it all makes sense. So Eric, what's the first topic that you want to talk about? Do you want to talk contract extensions? Do you want to talk the Nurkic article? I mean, I guess that's the only two basketball topics we have. So which one of those do you want to start off with?
Let's get to the extension and stuff real quick because we meant to talk about that last time but ran out of time.
All right. I'll let you lead that. So yeah, you're the CBA guy. So paint the picture, just kind of the situation that all three of these guys are in contractually.
So Nurk and Rocco are in a situation where they have 1 year left on their contract, and we are able to talk to them about extending that contract. There are caps to how much that can be, but we'll get to this in a second. Ant is coming off is going into the last year of his rookie deal, so this would just be a standard rookie contract extension. So with Ants, it can be anywhere from a minimum contract to like a maximum contract. We have full bird rights on all three of them, which means free agency next summer, we can offer them any amount. It doesn't affect us at all as long as we're willing to pay whatever salary that is or how much ever our overall team salary is. But there aren't any restrictions to how much we have to pay these guys as long as Jody's willing to pay them. So there are some restrictions on how much it can be for Nurk and Robert Covington right now, but those are numbers where we wouldn't want to pay them that much anyway, so it doesn't really matter too much. Let's start with Rocco, because we'll get to Nurk last because that'll lead into the article about him.
Yes. Yeah, perfect. Sounds good. So Rocco's a guy, like, his value is pretty much determined already, I feel like.
Yep.
Out of these three guys, his value is the most figured out, so to say. He has consistently been a 3-and-D guy in his career. That is not going to change. The only thing that'll change his value is if maybe he has like a 30% shooting season from three, which I don't see happening, or if he ends up being injured for most of the season, maybe that helps tank his value. But overall, he has the most sound value, whereas Nurkic and Simons, it's hard to predict what they could be worth after this season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's where my thing is. Robert makes the most sense to offer an extension to. If I had a guess, he's probably looking at contracts in the like 14 to 17 million range next year, whether that's from us or not. So I would probably start off offering him like 3 years, 45, and just go from there. I'd probably be comfortable bumping that up to 3 years, 51. It's about 15 to 17 million a year. I think that would be good for us to lock him up now, because like you said, his value is pretty much set. So even if the doomsday scenario of Dame leaving next summer or wanting out happens, we can still trade him and recover that value that we gave up to get him in the first place, I believe, pretty easily, even with a contract up to about 17 million.
Yeah, and people argue on the price point. I think 15 to 16 million is pretty fair. You look at other like back-end top 100 players in the league, which I think Robert Covington is a top 100 player in the league, and even Sports Illustrated's terrible top 100 list had him higher than I did, actually. They had him at 80, I believe, which was higher than Norman Powell too, which makes no sense. But if you look at other similar caliber starting forwards in the league, maybe like a Tim Hardaway, I know he's a completely different player, but in terms of just kind of like the quality of starter, like Tim Hardaway's a similar guy, and he got 18 million a year. I don't really have any other names off the top of my head. I'm kind of blanking on guys. You look at maybe like an Evan Fournier is a similar caliber player. I think Roko's a little bit better than him, but Evan Fournier got, how much did he get this last offseason?
I want to say like 24, 25. Might be off on that. But...
Are you thinking about the mock offseason?
No,
he
got like 27 in that one.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty close, and people were like, "Oh, so it wasn't that bad, huh?" I'll look it up.
Yeah. It was like, I think it was like 7. I thought it was 17 million, but that's what he was making before. So yeah, if you just look at like, definitely let me know the number on that. Because me and Eric are nerds and we like knowing salary numbers on players off the top of our heads. But
oh, you're right. It's only, yeah.
How much was it?
It was 4 years, 73 million.
Okay.
So it's average like 18, 19 a year.
Yeah. I mean, like, I would take Roko over him, and he got offered 18 million a year. Mm-hmm. So if you look at other similar caliber players to a Robert Covington, like 15 million might be a bit cheap, to be honest with you. Like, he's definitely worth 15. I saw Jackson say 11 to 13 in his opinion. It's just like, you just got to compare him to similar caliber players, and I feel like people tend to shortchange some of our role players in terms of what they should be making. Now, I thought Norman Powell was going to get more, so maybe I'm wrong, but I think $15 to $16 million is about the range that Roko will get.
I mean, if you want to start off offering him 11 or 12, if he accepts that, great.
Oh, yeah, you do that in a heartbeat. 4-year contract, $12 million a year, mm-hmm. 4th-year player option. Yeah, if he takes that, definitely.
I think, I know we signed Norm to a 4 or 5-year deal, but it doesn't, to me, I think if we talk extensions with Roko, it'll be more in the 2 to 3 year range versus a 4-year one.
At that price point, I would want him for 4 years, though.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't say no to 3 years at that price point. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just like, if you're giving him a questionable dollar amount, you would probably want to have that contract be a little bit shorter because it could be very questionable at the end of it. But if you're giving a dollar amount that you know is good for him, is like that he's definitely worth, then that 4th year is less questionable. You know, if he's only making $12 million a 4th year, I still think he'll be worth that, even if he declines a little bit 4 years from now. Whereas if you're giving him like $16 million a year, 4th year, $16 million, $17 million, whatever it is, that's more iffy to me.
Yeah.
So whatever is best for the team in terms of like the years that they hand out an extension is determined by the dollar amount.
Yeah. I agree. And this is the thing. If we do sign him to an extension, I think that pretty much signifies that Jody is willing to pay if we have to, or if we're good, you know. And the only time she hasn't been is when we're fighting for our playoff lives, and it doesn't really make sense to add salary to the team when we're not doing very well. So I think she'd be, if she commits to this team this summer, I think that's a really positive sign. I don't see any reason to be negative or to like be like, oh, how's it going to work with like 5 players making 120 million or whatever it ends up being already without even signing free agents or whatever. Well, that's a decision that they would have made before signing the extension. So I think it's only good if they do agree to an extension with him in particular.
You said if she commits this summer. Well, there's only 2 hours left in summer because tomorrow is September 21st. Okay. So she has 2 hours, guys.
All right, Eric Milligan. So when I say summer, I mean off season. Okay.
What's that name, Bull? I don't even get that one. Oh man.
It's because
I'm just giving you crap.
Yeah, there's this guy who always says like, when we refer to the off season as summer, he's like, well, actually, the off season starts 5 days into summer and ends like
I've never
like
seen him do that.
like
so.
a week after summer. So it's not
Yeah.
technically a summer. It's like a little bit of spring and fall. Or like, I don't know.
Okay. I apologize. Go on.
Yeah. But yeah, so Rocco is probably in that league, or in that range, and I think he, out of the three, is the most likely to both make from a sense standpoint and from like the team and from a value set point. It all makes sense to at least discuss it with him. Now the other two, I don't think it makes sense for either one. And we'll get to Ant first. It's so hard. It's so hard to know his value.
Yeah.
And, I don't know if he's willing to. I mean, obviously, if he's willing to take like a contract where it's not a huge burden on us financially, I think you go for it for sure. But like,
yeah, but he's not.
Right, he's not.
There's no logical sense behind that. I mean, you look at the contract that Gary Trent Jr. just got this past offseason, and I guarantee you, Anfernee is sitting there like, I'm just as good as him. I have a chance to break out this year. I shot the 3-ball really well, but I improved defensively a lot, and I can do more off the dribble than I've shown. Like, in his mind, I think he thinks he's going to be like a top 10 sixth man of the year. I mean, you could ask him. I'm just kidding. He's gonna be a top 10 sixth man of the year in his mind, and I think he has a chance to be if he gets the minutes. And he's still 22 years old. He's still around Gary Trent Jr.'s age, a little bit younger than him. And Gary Trent Jr., his season last year wasn't that great, and he got 18 million. So I think Anfernee's looking at this like, I can have a similar caliber season to Gary Trent Jr., and I can make $18 million. And if you're the Blazers, you're not sitting there like, yeah, we're going to pay a fourth guard over, $15-16 million a year, even though he probably hasn't played up to that level yet. So you're sort of sitting here with like, sure, go out there and offer Anfernee $8 million a year if you want. Like, I would love to get him on an $8 million a year deal, but there's no way Anfernee takes that after seeing what Gary Trent Jr. went out and got last offseason.
Yep, so that makes sense to, I mean, yeah, like you said, approach him. But don't be like, it's take it or leave it, we're going to trade you, or whatever. Like, don't be like that. But, yeah, Anfernee, I was kind of surprised they traded Trent last year, but Anfernee, I would be shocked if they traded him. I just think he's like the guy, the poster child for hope or whatever in Olshey's mind, And as long as he's the GM, I don't see any way they're going to move him, knowing that he's in the last year of his deal, like they did with the Plumlee or Gary Trent, So I don't see that as a huge possibility, unless, I mean, if it's a no-brainer where we get a superstar and we have to include him, sure, I could see that maybe. But I don't think we're going to dump him because we're worried about paying him necessarily, though.
Yeah, but we might dump him in order to get Norman Powell more minutes at the backup too, Not necessarily saying we'd bring Norm off the bench, but we could trade Anfernee Simons so that we could stagger Norm with Dame and CJ more so that we're able to play our forwards more. Like, I could see us trading him, especially since we have Norm locked up. I could see us maybe trading Anfernee for that reason. And it's also a situation where, like, if a star forward is available out there, and if Anfernee's having a breakout season, maybe it's something like Rocco, Nance, and Simons for a Pascal Siakam. I'm not sure if the money works on that. It's close. Like, maybe that's the trade. And Olshey's sitting here like, yeah, I want to add a Pascal Siakam to a CJ McCollum, Norman Powell, and Damian Lillard lineup. You know what I mean? I could see Ant being the headliner in that. And what you said, if we go out and get a star, I don't expect them to get traded. I wouldn't rule it out for the sole purpose of them maybe wanting to play Norm more at the 2 if this season is kind of iffy at the trade deadline.
Yeah, it's just still hard to make salaries match with Ant for a star like Siakam.
Well, I mean, you got Nance at 10 mil. You got Rocco at what? What?
Yeah,
12, 13
I know
mil?
the three of them combined. It's just
Yeah.
I don't know. That seems like a lot to. I mean, Siakam would be worth it. Of course, I'm not saying don't do that trade. It's just but yeah, I think it's more likely in my mind that CJ gets traded before Ant if he's having a breakout season.
I mean, you would think, and I'm not even disagreeing with that. I just wouldn't rule. I wouldn't rule out a Simons trade. I mean, at this time last year, we were thinking like, oh yeah, their Trent is like the future CJ replacement. That was what a lot of people were talking about, and he's the future because he can defend and hit the three and do a little bit off the dribble, right? So,
Well, they were saying that while CJ was injured during the season.
yeah, exactly. And in the end, we end up trading him for Norman Powell. So I could maybe see us trading Simons for like an upgrade at guard to come off the bench. Like if we're really gonna go all in, that's kind of the same trade as Gary Trent Jr. for Norman Powell, right? So if we're like doing really, really well, but Simons isn't necessarily like a top 10 sixth man, then I could see us maybe, I don't know who it would be for, but maybe trading him for an upgrade as our third guard. I wouldn't rule it out. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying it's likely. I wouldn't rule that out.
Like I said, I would be super surprised if that would happen.
Yeah. I think that's the thing though, is like there's a blueprint for it, so I don't know. Like it's something that would surprise me, but then like the more I think about like, okay, he did that with Gary Trent Jr., and then if he did the same trade, like it's obviously a pattern in which he would be like saying, okay, screw the youth movement, we need to get as good as possible now, whatever means necessary.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just hoping just hoping that Anfernee's good enough where it's like he is good enough already, so we don't need to trade him.
This is where I'm at. If he's playing good enough to where he has a decent trade value or significant trade value, I think he does fit exactly what you said. And if he's not living up to that, then I don't feel like his trade value is good enough to even worry about that. And we could probably re-sign him for a fairly good bargain in the offseason. So
yeah, I mean the thing is you don't have a salary filler piece like a Rodney Hood to attach to him, because Rodney Hood made that Norman Powell deal possible. Yeah,
I mean we could, I guess.
I mean, yeah, it's just like. Yeah, I don't know, because that's the thing, is I'm thinking, like, what if Indiana sucks and they're willing to trade Brogdon for Simons to go on a youth movement? Maybe that would be, like, the upgrade as the third guard or whatever. But the thing is, we'd have to include Rocco or Nance in that. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. And both those guys are much more serviceable than Rodney Hood's $10 million contract was last year. So that's the thing, is like you'd have to include two rotation players pretty much, because we don't have like a guy like a Rodney Hood who wasn't rotation quality last year to be able to throw in as $10 million in a trade.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I don't think he is the least likely person to get to sign an extension. Right? I don't think Nurkic is likely, but I would say he's less likely than Nurkic.
I think it's pretty even between Nurk and Ant, and we'll get into those reasons in a minute, I guess, unless we'll transition to that now.
I mean, I have one question for you, and then we'll transition. Is how many guys going into their fourth seasons have signed an extension that wasn't for the max?
There was actually a lot last year.
Was there?
Yeah.
Who?
Isaac, OG. Well, CJ on our team did, not last year, but before. Let me bring it up.
Yeah, because I'm curious. Because here's the thing with Isaac. With Isaac, he was injured and out for this whole entire season, so it's not like this season would have changed his free agency value anyway. So I feel like that's kind of an outlier, because he didn't get a fourth season of play to change his value.
Fultz did too.
Fultz?
Yeah.
See, but like Fultz and OG were already kind of established. Like Fultz was a starter. I mean, I guess Fultz was more of a wild card. OG was already like established as a starter. I feel like Anfernee hasn't established himself.
Luke Kennard got a huge extension from the
Well,
Clippers.
okay, he signed an extension because they overpaid him.
I know. I'm just saying. You asked for examples.
No. I did. And you're giving me examples. Yeah. I'm trying to like. I don't know. I'm just trying to equate it to something.
Kuzma signed an extension as well, $13 million a year.
Yeah, Kuzma. Yeah, see, like with a guy like him, as he was older and already had numerous chances for years. I know I'm like nuance and like picking apart all the examples. There are more examples than I thought because I was trying to think of examples off the top of my head.
That's just last summer.
Up with any.
Yeah.
And so then, there is precedent for it. It's just it's hard to find a guy.
There was also several others last summer that signed, but they were all max. So you got Bam, Donovan, Fox, Tatum.
Yeah,
all signed max extensions. So last summer was, I think it was the most extensions ever for a rookie class. So there is some precedent of some of these guys. And then most of the guys who didn't sign, they either like sucked and signed like minimum contracts, like Dennis Smith Jr., Malik Monk, those kind of guys. Josh Jackson's bounced around the league already. Frank Ntilikina, I don't think still has the team. They was flirting with Dallas. I don't know did he officially sign with Dallas or not. But yeah. And then the ones that were actually good that didn't sign an extension got paid this summer, like Lonzo, Jared Allen, John Collins, those kind of guys.
Yeah, it's hard to find a guy who's like hasn't yet established himself as like a good rotation player yet. He had good moments last year, shot the three ball well, but everything outside of that, he didn't do like consistently well for the entire season. So it's hard to find a guy that like hadn't yet established himself as a good rotation player yet, but also had the potential to have like a huge breakout year 4.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of like I started picking those apart and whatnot. It's just for a guy like him, that's why I don't think he'll sign, is because he hasn't established himself enough where you're comfortable giving him $15, $16, $17 million, but he has the potential to play well enough in year 4 to make $15, $16, $17 million.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's exactly what we saw with Gary Trent Jr. And didn't Gary Trent Jr. turn down an extension last offseason?
Yeah, I believe it was the max we could give him was like 13 or 14 mil, or maybe it was even less than that, but it was something like 4 years, 50 million or something like that, 53 million.
Yeah. So I mean, that's kind of like the similar situation where like Gary Trent Jr. turned that down because he thought he was worth more, and he ended up making more. So that's kind of the position that I think Anfernee Simons is in. Let's talk Nurkic.
All right.
I'll let you lead the way with this one as well.
So a lot of this leads into the talk about his the article from Jason Quick, but this is a case where he's, first of all, with Clutch Sports, so they're not going to accept a crappy offer. So and giving him a crappy offer might actually make them resent us and not want to deal with us next summer. He is an unrestricted free agent, so he can sign with any team. For the first time in his life, he will have that ability, because the last time he was a free agent, we had the rights to match any trade, so he wasn't like free to leave us if we wanted to keep him. So I don't think it's a good idea to lowball him or anything like that this offseason. And at the same time, he's one of those guys where if he has a breakout season, he's going to command probably closer to $20 million. And if he doesn't, he's going to be getting the Enes Kanter type offers where it's maybe like the room exception and stuff like that. So I don't know if there's much middle ground with Nurk. So it doesn't make sense for him to sign thinking that he's going to have a great breakout season, and it doesn't really make sense for us to lowball him or even try to get a reasonable offer, because I'm pretty sure that's not going to be on the table from his end.
Yeah, and he talked about in the article how he's like excited to be in a contract year. You know what I mean? And I like his value under Billups. I think will be higher than his value under Stotts. I think he'll be better utilized under Billups. So it's just a situation where, for contract extensions, I feel like what they've shown has to match up with what you expect from them in the coming years. So that's why like guys that make a max, you know what I mean, like. Luka Doncic. He's going to sign a contract extension for the max because he's proved he's worth it, and he's going to be worth it in the future. Robert Covington has proved his worth in previous years, and you expect him to be, worth about the same as he's been the previous couple years and the next couple of years. So that's why an extension would make sense for him. That's why it doesn't make sense for Simons. That's also why I agree with that, and I don't think it makes sense for Nurkic because... I mean, I'd love to sign him to an extension, but he has to want to sign the extension. And I think he's very confident in himself, it seems like. Even though, like, at times he'll get down here and there, he's, especially under Chauncey, he's extremely confident going into next season. So it's not a situation where he's just going to sign for anything less than $20 million, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. He is going to, especially with Rich Paul, who is the... contract Aaron Gordon. How much did Aaron Gordon get per year? Like $24 million or something like that?
Yeah.
Which is absurd.
Yeah, it was 4 years, 92. There's some incentives, so it could be a little less than that.
But that's $23 million a year for Aaron freaking Gordon. And if Nurkic is looking at that like, oh my goodness, my agent went out and got that guy $23 million a year, I'm making $20 million a year next year. Yeah. If you're Portland... You're giving Nurkic a great chance to show all that he is worth next year. You're putting him in the best position to exceed, in my opinion, with how I think Chauncey Billups will use him. But you can't... I'm not confident enough in Nurkic, even though I am confident in Nurkic, much more confident than some other people in our fan base. Even though I'm confident in him, I'm not confident enough to sit here and be like, yeah, let's shell out $20 million a year for 4 years for Nurkic right now. So that's where things aren't lined up in terms of how the team would value him right now and how Nurkic would value himself. The team is giving him a chance to prove it. This is a prove it year, contract year. It's not the situation that makes sense for an extension.
Yep, I completely agree. Arrow Man says we should give Nurk a front-loaded contract. That doesn't really work anymore. You can do a decreasing contract, but it's only like 8% less.
I believe you can only do 5%.
I
believe you can do 8% raises on bird deals, but like you can't necessarily do 8% decreases. Yeah, so I don't know. Decreases are weird.
It's not even. I mean, yeah, declining contracts are cool for the team, but it's not like we can give him like $25 million the first year and then 10 the next 2 years or something. That contracts don't work that way. They have to be within a certain percentage of the original first year.
Yeah. And here's the thing: is like going down 5% isn't going to be much different than doing a backload contract going up 8%. Mm-hmm. We're talking about less than a 10% difference here. Like we're not talking much. Like here's the thing. If you offer him a front load contract, you have to offer him more in year 1 and year 2. Nurkic is looking at this like over the course of his entire extension, he's probably worth $20 million a year. Doesn't matter if it's front loaded or back loaded. And signing something that's front loaded isn't going to make it so that things align more. That's not going to help us figure out an extension. That's not going to help both parties come to terms right now because the situation just doesn't make sense no matter how the contract is structured, because the Blazers, I guarantee you, are not confident enough to give Nurkic as much as Nurkic thinks he's worth right now. Mm-hmm. And if Nurkic proves it next year, then sure, then they'll meet him there. If Nurkic doesn't prove it, then Nurkic is going to have to, lower his demands, so to say. Like, somebody's going to have to meet the other one, and it's not going to happen right now. It's going to happen after the season.
He says that Orlando did it with Vucevic. So I just looked it up. He signed a 4-year, $100 million. It started out $28 million and then decreased $2 million a year down to $22 in the 4th year. Mm-hmm. But that's with the percentage of $28 million. So if you're giving Nurk that same contract, I'm not willing to give Nurk 4 years, $100 million right now.
Yeah, Nurkic would take that, but you're still paying him
if you're talking about 20, then it's a little
point.
smaller. So you're talking about like 20 down to like 15 or something at the end of the contract. So you're talking about, what would that be, like 4 years, $70 million. I'm still a little hesitant to do that right now. Not that I doubt Nurkic or anything, but I don't know if he would even accept that right now, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and here's the thing. Like, he would, if you offered him that, because what, year 4, is that to 2025?
Yeah. Well, no, it'd be to 2026, because...
Yeah, if here's the thing. If he was offered that, he would say, give me a 3-year deal and take off that 4th year. Because that 4th year, the 2025 offseason, I mean, the league is going to... I think that's the start of a new TV deal for the league. They have to figure it out, but there is a chance that the salary cap goes up to like $170 million in 2025. So instead of like making $15 million and making less than he's made the last 3 years prior, Nurkic would at least ask for a player option and probably opt out. Like front-loaded, there's not the difference between front-loaded and back-loaded contracts is so negligible. It's not even like a difference maker here. So, yeah.
The other thing, I think, so 4 years, $70 million, I believe, is about the most we can offer him if we're talking about this summer. So,
yeah.
I don't think we can even go higher than that if we wanted to.
Yeah, and here's the thing. His agent's Rich Paul. So his agent is going to really, like, Rich Paul is really good at getting the best value for players. We saw it with Aaron Gordon making $23 million a year. So if he had a different agent, maybe it'd be a little bit more likely before the season. But with Rich Paul, it's extreme. Like, I would be shocked if Nurkic signed an extension before the season. I'd be shocked. Also, I would be. I think there's like a less than a 1% chance of it happening.
Also, like, if you're talking about close to $20 million a year, like, the chances of him getting contracts more than that next summer are pretty slim. So the risk is all from our side, basically, if even if that was possible. So like, oh no, he has like a breakout year and we have to pay him 24 instead of 20. That's not like the end of the world. But if we have to pay him 20 and he's only worth 10 or whatever, or not worth it, keeping him around, and we want to get rid of him and can't because he's got this huge contract, that's way worse in my opinion. So not that, once again, I'm not saying that that's going to happen or what I believe will happen, but when you're thinking about it that way, it's much better to have to pay him a couple extra million next summer than to get stuck with a bloated contract if it goes the other way.
Yeah, like, why pay him 20 now when there's a chance he's only worth 10 or he proves that he's worth 20? Mm-hmm. You'd rather he prove that he's worth 20 than to give him 20 before he proves it. Like, it's just you got to play your cards smart here, and that's what the team will end up doing. And Nurkic is smart to bet on himself playing under Chauncey. Like, it's smart from both sides to wait. So we will see.
The other factor here is, I mean, who knows? You can't predict injuries, but another like huge injury from Nurk this year, and his value is going to be like Zach Collins level next summer, right? So
he might be, dude. He might make less if he gets hurt next year. Because the thing is with Zach is like his injury situation is like he's only had 2 injuries, right? In the second injury, they just messed up the surgeries the first 2 times, so he's been out a really long time.
Yeah,
but he's still young, so the Spurs are betting on him being healthy and like developing as a young player. Nurkic doesn't have that age on his side. So if Nurkic gets hurt, I think he'd make $5-6 million if he had a significant injury and missed almost the entire season. And then maybe in the other games he played, he wasn't, playing up to his potential. Mm-hmm. So that's the thing. His value is it could be drastically different.
Yeah.
Depending on how the season goes. So it's just a situation where he's going to bet on himself, and he's wise too, and the team needs to see a healthy season out of him and needs to see him produce. And it would suck if Stotts was back and it's like, oh man, we're not putting him in the best position to go get as much money as possible, right? But we are putting, it sounds like, listening to Chauncey, we are putting Nurkic in the best position possible to earn as much money as he can next year.
Mm-hmm.
So we're being fair to him as an organization by letting him bet on himself and putting him in a position to succeed.
And Billups, we'll get to this in the article, but he knows that he needs, in order to have this type of season he wants to have, he needs Nurk to play at a high level. So that's going to be the key, I think, to this whole season is what they do with him and how they utilize him.
Yep. So you want to move into the article?
Sure.
All right. You got all the notes. You got quotes circled and everything. So
for those that don't know, Jason Quick had an article, and it was about. Well, there's some quotes from Billups in there, but it was mostly about Nurkic's reaction to the Billups hiring and what has taken place since then, the conversations they've had, how Nurk is feeling about this season coming up, and all that. Before we get into the quotes, I just want to say I cannot believe how much hate this article is getting and how much hate Nurk in particular is getting over this. Like, I don't understand. You mentioned at the beginning of the show that we've become like positive, right?
Yeah.
I don't understand like how everything is just spun into a negative way. It's like when we were accused of being negative, it was because we didn't like the coach, and we told you guys why we didn't like the coach and gave you reasons why. We just didn't complain at every little thing just to complain. That's not how we weren't trying to spin everything in a negative way. That's just how we felt reacting to what was happening on the court. But now I feel like this summer, it's like people have painted themselves in a position where they're almost going to be rooting for this team to fail next year. And as Blazer fan, I just can't get behind that attitude and those kind of people who are doing that right now.
You had somebody, I mean, let's just say screw it this stream and just name names. I didn't ever listen to this. I think you did and somebody else did, but you know who saying, okay, from what it seemed like, without me listening to it, but reading what some of you guys were talking about, somebody told Nurkic to just shut up and dribble, essentially.
Yeah, so this is Dan Meringue. I did not watch it. No, I would never watch that. But
I don't want to support that. Like
someone shared a clip of him. He kind of hedged it by saying he could do this, but at times I just feel like saying or telling him to shut up and dribble, and that's just disgusting, man. It's just. I think it's just saying what he feels. Like I don't understand why like this has to turn into a big negative thing.
I mean that's just kind of been the whole thing all off season though. Is just like
shut up and play basketball.
Yeah, you know. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't listen to him, and I don't understand people that do because it's like from what I've heard about some of the stuff that he says, it's just miserable, man. And it's like this is a guy who has given us a ton of crap in the past, so I'm okay with sitting here and talking about it and just giving my opinion on it because he's certainly not afraid to give his opinions on anything. So I'll give my opinions on him and his product over there. And, you know, there might be somebody in this chat, a couple people in this chat who also watch him and whatever. You guys can watch him if you want. Oh, man, that's not cool. Nurkic, this whole article is a positive thing. Nurkic excited for the season, excited to play under Chauncey, is happy because he feels like Chauncey believes in him and sees what he sees in himself. And you have people out here telling him to shut up and dribble. Yep. They're so-called Blazer fans telling him to shut up and dribble. It's almost like people hate him because he wasn't a Stotts fan like them.
Yeah, and these same people, when Nurk has a breakout season and is dominating, will be like, I never said that. Like find me where I said that. You know?
It's the same people that wanted to trade CJ for Aaron Gordon. Thank goodness we didn't trade CJ McCollum for Aaron Gordon and paid Aaron Gordon $23 million a year. Yeah,
and then his co-host on there was clowning Nurk for his comments in this article too. And then the other thing Meringue said in that same one, I guess, was that people expected Stotts to have a top 10 defense, and now they're changing their expectations to being happy with Billups if he's only the 15th rated defense. Like, where is this stuff coming from? He's just making stuff up to try and like support an argument that doesn't exist. It's just so dumb. Like,
I mean, yeah. But, that's the easiest thing to do is just say these people are saying... I'll talk about, like, what other people are saying, but it's stuff I've actually read. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's stuff I don't remember anybody saying we should be a top 10 defense. Maybe there's a couple guys on Twitter. Maybe he's getting it from there. But... no, people just didn't want us to be in the bottom 2 or 3 teams.
We're
like,
the second worst defense.
Come on, man.
We were terrible 2 years ago, and then we were worse last year somehow. Like,
yeah, we got worse. People just wanted us to improve. We had better personnel. Everybody agreed on that, and we expected at least some defensive improvement because we had better defensive personnel, right? And everybody was acting like it was a personnel issue. So, okay, I'm on board with that. And then we regressed despite having better defensive personnel, and then it's still the personnel that's the problem. I mean, I don't know, man. But it's just, you got people out here that are going into next year in a position where it's like they are rooting for certain things to happen that aren't good, or at least it seems like it. Like, I was praying Stotts would prove me wrong last year, man. I would love it if Stotts proved me wrong and turned into a great coach. I would love it if he figured things out, even though I don't think he can. I would love that because that mean the best possible thing for the Portland Trail Blazers. And I feel like you guys know that we are diehard Blazer fans. Hopefully that is the feeling you get from us, where we're not willing to put our own pride over our fanhood.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish other people came across that way as well. And a lot of people don't.
Yeah. I mean, the worst probably example for you would be that the silver lining in Stotts losing in the first round meant it's gone. We don't have to deal with them. But
yeah, in our I didn't want it to happen, but I was
the team long term. Yeah, I never wanted it to. I would have rather won a championship with Stotts than have to come on here and say how they did that despite Stotts, and say that I was wrong, that Stotts would never win crap because he did. I would much rather have that happen, but it seems like these people are all setting it up to either like bash the team the minute they start doing bad next season. And for those that haven't seen, go check out Tori's video because he explains why a slightly above 500 start or worse might not be the worst thing in the world.
Mm-hmm. And here's the thing, like that 50-win pace in that video was completely determined by math. I don't really know how to explain the math behind it, but it was based on our predicted strength of schedule. And some people were like, oh, I'd have the Timberwolves up a tier and whatnot. That tier list wasn't necessarily supposed to argue or was supposed to be something that was the point of the video, so I kind of didn't like that. I had a couple people discussing the tiers of teams. It was mostly just to determine our strength of schedule each month. So if you switch around a couple teams, sure, that'd change slightly, but basically, no matter how you paint it, the first month to 2 months of the season for the Blazers are extremely hard. Extremely, extremely hard. And a 50-win pace would be us going 12-10, and then 20-16 after December. 12-10 after November, 20-16 after December. Because after that, our strength of opponent is much, much easier. And if we're 12-16 against the hard schedule that we have through December, then we're going to be playing well enough to be on a 50-win pace when we face easier teams, if that makes sense. So, completely determined off the math. But if we're 12-10 after November, you're going to have people panicking. You're going to have people freaking out. If we're 20-16 after the new year, people will say, oh, see, we're even worse in the regular season. Why do people think this? We're yada, yada, yada. That will be what happens. You'll have a bunch of people acting like, oh, see, we're right no matter what. They won't be talking about how they're facing tough teams because that doesn't fit their narrative. If it was under Stotts, they would be. If it was under Stotts, I mean, last year I heard people saying, well, you got to give him at least 20 games, if not more, to figure out this new roster and
then
these
20
new
more
players.
Once injuries happen, and then 20 more once we traded for Norm.
Yeah, they made excuse after excuse after excuse. Those same excuses that they gave Terry Stotts, they will not give for Chauncey Billups, and they will not give for this team, even if the same things play out, right? See, like, that's the thing, is it's easy for me because me and you, because we just watch basketball and observe.
Yeah.
That's it. It's that simple.
And we've talked about this before, but if we come out and we don't move the ball we're not utilizing Nurk in a different way. He's just doing the same thing out there, or we have like no good
Mm-hmm.
help defense. We're just and the effort off ball is terrible. I'll be the first. Like game one, I'll be sitting here killing the coaches for not at least trying to do something different. But if we're losing because we're trying to figure out how to play a different way, that's completely different in my opinion. And that's more like what we talked about last season with the
Mm-hmm.
Bucks trying to learn to do things a little differently. And you can always revert back to the old way. But in my mind, that's the beauty of bringing the starting lineup back. And I know no one wants to hear that, but this lineup can do fine even trying to learn a new strategy, in my opinion, and keep us in these games, even while trying to learn a new system and all that kind of stuff. And I don't think it's going to take as long as if you had a bunch of new players in a system that you also had to get familiar with another player in addition to learning a new system. So we got the cohesion of the unit there, the chemistry there, and we just have to focus on learning the new stuff. So I think that puts us ahead of a lot of other teams that made huge changes, like a Lakers bringing in a Russell Westbrook, where you have to basically figure out how to incorporate this massive uh, ball usage player into your
Mm-hmm.
lineup. Where we don't have any of those problems, we just have to figure out a way to share the ball more. And I feel like that's so much easier of a problem to solve than some of these other teams that will have problems earlier in the season trying to adapt. And so that's why I think, even though with our tough schedule, I wouldn't be surprised to get off to a good start.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the thing is like, if we're 14-8 after November, we're looking good.
Yeah,
like, go watch that schedule breakdown if you haven't already. I mean, if you just focus on the type of teams we're playing, man. I mean, 14-8 would be a great start for us, you know. So that's the hope, especially if we're figuring out how to do new things, man. And that's the beauty with bringing the roster back is we'll be able to see, you know, if Chauncey changes things up, we'll be able to see how beneficial that is. And we'll be able to see, in my opinion, that it wasn't personnel. So anyway, we got a little sidetracked. Let's
yeah.
get to the article. And this is just, you know, the stuff Nurkic is saying is why me and Eric are optimistic going into the season, especially surrounding Jusuf Nurkic if he's able to stay healthy.
Absolutely. And the first paragraph is basically just Nurkic was on a hike when he found out we hired Billups, and he was like, "Oh, this is interesting," because he was talking about him in the press conference.
Yeah.
And then the second paragraph talks about how Nurk left Portland feeling like his relationship with the organization was fraying. He spent much of last season biting his tongue over how he was used. He wanted to be more aggressive on defense and have a larger role on offense. And this is stuff we talked about at length. Apparently, people don't understand that still. That's
Yeah.
causing a lot of the bashing of Nurkic. And um, here's the deal: Nurkic, if you combine what he's saying in this article with what Billups said in the article we talked about last stream about the effort and wanting to have more of a defense that's predicated on help defense instead of just watching one player trying to stop the ball handler and then like maybe like helping off at the last second or whatever. All that kind of stuff. Nurk isn't going to just foul out immediately by playing more aggressive. He's going to be in better positions. He's going to be more focused. He's going to be in situations where he's not fouling more. And I know that doesn't make sense to people, but like it's not like he's just going to trap and like immediately foul someone. It's just about where you're positioned. And the way he was positioned, the way he was expected to guard Jokic in that playoff series basically gave him no chance to not foul in some of those situations. And then a couple of them were frustration after stuff that was happening on the other end. Yes, he did pout on the floor a few times, but this is about years of frustration of him not being used right and seemingly all like bubbling over into this series and this season. And you could tell he wasn't happy. And I just feel like for those that don't think he can play any differently than he does, I think you're just going to notice how good of a help defender he is, how good he can be trapping the ball. For his size, he's actually quite mobile. And he's not the type that can just like lock down a guard like a Bam Adebayo. He's not going to be like that type on the perimeter, but like he's not going to get blown by every time. He's like more than capable of switching and playing a little bit on the perimeter, and that's kind of rare for a center. I just think there's so many ways you can use him that will make him happier, first of all, and if he's happier and more engaged in the game, I just think we're going to see a whole nother level to where we've seen it in flashes with the Nurk fever, and right before he got hurt, he was starting to really come on. But yeah, there's that type of player is in there and could be a more consistent version of that.
Yeah. I mean, I would rather him switch up his coverage on pick and rolls. I think he can play in any sort of coverage on pick and rolls. And for people that say, oh, well, he's just going to foul more if he plays more aggressively on pick and rolls, I don't agree with that. When he's running drop, he basically has a ball handler as well as a rolling big who's a lob target coming at him in a 1v2 situation. Like, it's almost impossible to guard both if you're playing against a decent NBA guard, right? And in a lot of situations, you're going to end up fouling there because you're going to try and break the lob, so you're going to kind of jump without even seeing the roll man who maybe is behind you at this point to try and break it up, and you're going to hit them on the arm or, back into them, or, you're sagging, but then the guard pulls up for a floater. You might, in an attempt to contest that, might step forward too much and make body contact before they land. Like, there's a lot of opportunities to foul if you're a big man playing drop scheme on a pick and roll. If he has to go out and hedge, he has to run to a spot and get to a spot before the guard gets there. And then once he's in that spot, don't slide into the guard. He has to beat the guard to the spot. I think he's mobile enough to do that. And here's the thing. If the guard beats him to the spot, then, hopefully he made the guard, slow down or dribble backwards a little bit to get around him or whatnot, and then to recover, he has to get back to his man. Hopefully by that point, whoever was guarding the ball handler is able to have gotten through the screen and back to his man. That, I think, the only chance for fouls there are if he's running out to the guard and running into him or sliding into him. But that's not something that's like a technique thing. That's not a situation where he's being put in a tough spot where he has to try to defend two people coming at him at once. So I've never bought the narrative that having him play more aggressively on pick and rolls is going to cause foul trouble. I mean, when Anthony Davis trapped Dame in the playoffs with Drew Holiday, was Anthony Davis picking up a ton of fouls? No. It's a situation where Anthony Davis knew how to trap and his coach let him trap. I think Nurkic knows how to trap, and he might need some work on it, but that's where I hope that Chauncey Billups is able to come in and really help him become a good pick-and-roll defender as a big man who is aggressive at the point of attack, aggressive at the guards coming off the screen. I hope that Chauncey's able to help Nurkic get the technique down in order to be able to hedge without fouling and trap without fouling, because the best bigs at that in the league don't just pick up a bunch of fouls from that. So there's no reason why Nurkic should either. So I've never bought that narrative. That narrative has, to me, just been an excuse for Stotts to keep running the same broken defense that hasn't worked in years. That has been one of the worst defenses the past couple seasons.
Yep, I agree.
Anyway, there's my ramble. But that's how I feel about it, man. It's just an excuse. You want to move on to the next quote or touch upon that, or what you want?
Yep, I just agree with most of what you say. And for those, I've been pretty clear. I don't believe you need lockdown individual defenders to be a good defense. And yes, having lockdown defenders or guys with the reputation of being good defenders helps. I will not dispute that. If you have 5 like Draymond Green type basketball IQ defenders on the court at all times, then yes, you don't need the best schemes because those guys are smart enough to figure it out on their own on the floor. And that's what makes them so much better than just your average defender, is because guys like that, you don't have to teach them the scheme or how to play defense. They just instinctually do it, and that makes the reaction time that much quicker. However, if you have a good scheme and you have all 5 guys working together, helping each other out, always in the right position, always giving effort, I believe that you can have a top 10 defense simply by scheming it that way. And I can't be convinced otherwise, because a guy like Draymond Green, a guy like Patrick Beverley, Avery Bradley, like some of these guys, Jimmy Butler, who have all been, some of the better defenders or perimeter defenders, Kawhi Leonard, these guys aren't like crazy athletic guys. I mean, they're athletic, of course, they're in the NBA, but they're not like the most athletic guys in the league, right? So it doesn't take some sort of like crazy amount of athleticism. It's about basketball IQ, being in the right spots, and being able to recognize where the help is coming from, where to push the ball handler, what direction to push him to, how you navigate through a screen, and what times to go quickly through the screen, what time to let your big man hedge or trap or whatever, and all that kind of stuff. You mix that all in, and if you can have mediocre defenders, but if they're all working together like that, you can be a good defense. And I think this is the point Chauncey is trying to make. And the reason why I've been so frustrated with the last few seasons is because we've heard all these excuses, like you said. Oh, they can't do that because then it leaves the middle wide open or whatever. It's like, well, then why do teams do it to us and we get taken out of games then? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, it never applies to us the same way it does to other teams. And then it's like, oh, they have the personnel. It's like, no, like our personnel is fine. Like, Dame and CJ have been part of a defense that has been a top 10 defense. It's not like they're incapable of being on a starting lineup that has a top 10 defense. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what Billups does with that, and if he can incorporate that into this roster that people think has no chance of being that.
Yep. Do you have the quote about Nurkic going rogue?
Do
you have that?
That's like later on in the article, I think.
Yeah, let's just progress on through this.
Okay. So one interesting thing is that Nurk and Billups actually knew each other before. Billups, I guess, lived in Denver for a while, and actually texted with Nurk even after he got traded to Portland, giving him advice about how to stay out of foul trouble and being in better defensive positions and stuff, which is funny because he was getting that from Billups in Denver, but not from his own coaching staff. But yeah. So Nurkic actually came on a plane and flew here to Portland to meet with Billups. And he says that it was a man-to-man conversation. It was great conversation. Billups said he was upfront with Nurkic, and he told him that he meant every word he said about getting more out of him, and that the offense would feature more ball movement and more touches. But he also told Nurk that he needed him to be in shape, and that if he was tired, he'd be coming out of the game. Nurkic says he was straight up with him, and that's what I like in people, open cards. I respect that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good motivation. See, that type of stuff with Chauncey, it seems simple to people, but, that's why I think he'll be a good coach, is he knows how to lead, and that's going to motivate Nurkic to get his butt in shape heading into training camp. And I've seen pictures of him, he looks like he's in shape. You know what I mean? Like, better than it was last year. It looks like he's been working a lot, and he's already back in Portland working out right now. So it's, some of that is family situation last year played a hand in it, but it's like, if you're Chauncey, you're offering him the best opportunity for him to be the best player he can be. You're offering him a better situation than you did last year. But you're also holding him accountable, saying you got to be in shape, though. You have to be able to. You have to be conditioned. If you're going to be this big of a part of the team, you have to make sure that you're in shape enough to be able to stay on the court. And I think as the season goes along, if Nurkic commits a couple silly fouls, it'll sort of be a situation where Chauncey is saying, you're a big part of this team. We've given you this responsibility. You have to stay on the court. You can't be picking up fouls, swiping for balls because we need you. Because you're important. That's how you lead, you know what I mean? That's why that's the vibe I like from Chauncey in regards to Nurkic, because I think that'll work better with Nurkic than maybe occasionally chewing him out, which it was like he was the only guy that Stotts would ever chew out, you know what I'm saying? So that's the thing, is you have to know how to coach certain players. I think Chauncey already knows what will get Nurkic going.
Shaggy Squid just stole what I was going to say. This is what we talk about when we mention the word accountability. So instead of having a press conference after a game where our young players are playing well, yet our coach goes with the veterans and they lose a game for us because they didn't play well, and him saying, well, they're going to get the minutes because they're veterans and they've earned that spot in the league. You'll have Billups saying, look, I told you, if you didn't give effort on defense, you're coming out of the game, right? So if you don't like it, give better effort next time, right? That's accountability. That's how you hold players accountable, right? And Nurk, you better show up in shape. I'm not dealing with you if you do not show up in shape. So Nurk has no choice but to show up in shape. Otherwise, Billups will tell him right away, look, I'm disappointed in you. I told you to come in shape and you didn't. So now I have to focus on letting the players who did listen to me come in, and I'm going to give them the first crack at this. Like, that's on you, man. And then Nurk can't sit there and complain about him like he did with Stotts, because that's on Nurk now. That's all him. And he doesn't have the excuse.
Yeah, but it's also using an incentive.
Right.
Like,
yeah,
it's
not like
it's like you're going to have a bigger role than you had. It's incentivizing him to want to stay in shape. You know, that's the thing, is like, you got to hold players accountable for stuff, but you also have to incentivize them to hold themselves accountable as much as possible. Right? So that's the thing, is like, with Dame and CJ, you have to constantly remind them, the only way we're ever going to win a championship is if you guys consistently give effort and commit to the defensive end. And I am here because I want to help you guys, and I want to be a part of this organization winning a championship. So if you're not giving effort, we're holding you accountable. The incentive is, we're trying to win a championship here. You know what I mean? That's the thing, is there's some coaches that I feel like are hard on players and don't know how to lead in terms of like incentivizing players to hold themselves accountable enough. So instead, the coach tries to, yell at them and do all these things to get them to hold themselves accountable. But in the end, for a guy like Nurkic, you have to incentivize him with something. You have to incentivize him with the role he feels like he deserves. Because if you're Stotts and you're not utilizing him properly, but then you're also getting mad at him anytime he messes up on defense, but Nurkic feels like, oh, well, if I was allowed to do different things, if I was allowed to hedge, if I was allowed to trap, then we'd be better on defense, then it might not be effective if you're getting on him for something, right? Like, you have to listen to your players, you have to incentivize your players have to have a bit of a say in the NBA in how things work. And I think, Chauncey in this article said that he wants communication to be a two-way street. I don't remember the exact quote, but yeah, that's why I just believe Chauncey is the right guy for this team. He's the best leader for this team. He knows how to lead people.
Here's the deal. If you know what the coach expects, and you're going to be held accountable, players like Dame and CJ won't have to be held accountable, if that makes sense, right? Nurk, same way. Like, because they will, if they want to be winning, if they want to be an elite team, if they want to get paid, like the case of Nurkic, he needs to do everything Chauncey's saying. Chauncey's 100% right what he needs to do on the court. So if he's not holding himself to that standard, he's never going to be a good player anyway. So that's the beauty of holding players accountable and having that respect before you even get on the court, is because then those players will run through a wall for you, and they're not going to question why you yelled at them, because you missed a pick and roll coverage or whatever. They're going to be like, yeah, my bad. They'll know before they even get to Phillips on the sideline that they messed up, and tell him, hey, look, that was my bad. I missed that one. It will never happen again. I learned from that one, right? Instead of just being like, oh, you didn't drop in the right spot, and you were trapping too much going rogue, right? And then that's the frustrating difference. And I just feel like if you set your expectations and hold people accountable from the beginning, and don't give anyone special privilege, and expect that, you're never going to have to worry about Dame having to hold him accountable or having to bench him, because a player like that won't ever need to be benched, because he knows what he has to do on the court. And it's not going to be a question of he's not going to give effort because that guy leaves his heart on the floor. So I just think that that's what we've been talking about with accountability. And if you have it and you do it the right way, then you don't even have to hold them accountable.
Yeah. So, I mean, I also just think we need a new voice too. I think Stott's always got to tell. So that's part of it too that I think will help. But let's move on with this article.
Right. So this was the
by the way, I don't think we mentioned this is Jason Quick with The Athletic.
Yeah,
I feel like we should definitely give him credit for this.
I think we did mention that.
Yeah, I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
All right.
This is, I mean, this is a crazy quote, but Nurkic said, "To be honest with you, this is probably the best thing other than Dame Lillard to happen in my life. Getting a new coach."
I mean, that's what his.
It's a little hyperbole.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Like there's some
sure
players
that was from
speaking
a
here.
basketball perspective, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't. Dame was obviously good for him, and Chauncey's kind of cut from the same cloth. And it's not like Nurkic has ever really been featured in an offense that has a lot of ball movement. He's never been featured as like a starting center who can defend in multiple schemes. He wasn't a consistent starter in Denver and really wasn't the player that he is now. He is more mobile now and much more in shape than he was in Denver. So it's a situation where it's like, this should be the first opportunity for him to play in an offense that'll truly feature his passing ability, that'll feature better player movement, ball movement for him to play in, and then defensively he'll be able to play multiple schemes. So that's where I think that comes from, with him saying that Chauncey Billups is the best thing to happen to him in his basketball career, other than Damian Lillard.
And people always talk about how well, not everyone, but a lot of people, one of their problems with Nurk is his emotional stability on the court. And this is the thing, being happy and being on the same page with the coach and not having to think about how you're being misused all the time. He'll go home at night thinking, wow, what a great game. I was really involved and I got to be aggressive on defense and I got to do all the things I wanted to do or think I'm capable of doing. And this coach believes in me to do them. His emotion, Beavis wants people keep beating me to what I was about to say in chat. So it looks like I'm copying them, but you can turn a player like that who plays with raw emotion on the court into a positive thing. And if Nurk is able to do that, that's going to be one of the things. He's got that fight in him. He's talks crap to people. He gets he can get mad, but if you do that in a positive way, where you're mad and I'm going to dominate you because I'm mad type attitude, and he has that most of the season, then he's going to be an unstoppable player, and I'm just really looking forward to that.
Yeah, and here's the thing. It's pretty much impossible to be bought into a system that you think is bad.
Mm-hmm.
And Stotts' system was bad. Like, his system was just bad, man. Pick and roll, isolation offensively, and then drop scheme defensively. And that was basically it. Sure, maybe a little something here and there, but that was basically the system.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a good system in today's NBA. If that's all you can do, if that's all your system is, you're never going to succeed in the playoffs, right? So for Nurkic, yeah, of course he's going to be frustrated if this system is completely trash. And he thinks the system is completely trash. And then he's not utilized, his playmaking, his passing ability isn't utilized as much as he feels like it should be. And then defensively, he's stuck playing 1v2 against a ball handler and a lob target running downhill on him because he's running drop scheme and our coaching staff hasn't taught our guards how to get through screens properly. Mm-hmm. Of course he's going to be frustrated. Of course he's not going to be bought in. Of course he's going to be emotional and pouty and, quote, have a bad attitude. And I saw somebody, I think it was David earlier in chat, say something about Nurkic's bad attitude. I don't blame him for that. Sure, there's other players on the team who were fine, but of course Dame's going to be fine. He's getting a ton of touches and gets to do whatever he wants. Of course CJ is going to be fine. He gets a ton of touches, gets to do whatever he wants. Of course Melo's going to be fine. Cantor is hopeless defensively, so he's not going to care what they're running. He's just going to, pray basically on defense. You know what I'm saying? So of course other players aren't going to have as much of a problem with it than he is. And that attitude, if you have a good system and you're holding him accountable and you're upfront and real with him and you're designing a system to feature his strengths as well as other players' strengths on the roster, that attitude issue doesn't exist. And his attitude would become a plus. Just like Beavis said, just like you said.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out Gray Hughes investigates $10 dono.
What's up, Gray Hughes?
Says Nurkic is a great player that Stotts held back. He has amazing ability to pass and just play basketball all around. Finally, he might have some freedom to be him. I can't wait. Boom. Appreciate it, Gray Hughes, with the $10 dono. And I think that's where, us and other people, that's part of the disagreement is other people don't see as much in Nurkic as I do and as you do.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's fine. But don't tell him to shut up and dribble like some other people have said with YouTube channels, some other YouTubers. I guess we could just call them YouTubers at this point, which is funny. But anyway, appreciate it, Gray Hughes.
What's funny about that? He got into a political argument a few hours later.
We're talking about Meringue, by the way.
Yeah, Danny Meringue.
I want Gray Hughes or anybody think somehow Gray Hughes is the vet. We're not talking about Gray Hughes. I know what, because Gray Hughes does YouTube too. So that's not what I'm talking about. When I'm talking about YouTubers, I'm talking about ex-TV guy.
I resisted, but how is him talking about politics any different than him telling a basketball player to, shut up and dribble? So
I mean, it's just trying to silence people for their opinions. Mm-hmm. Telling Nurkic to shut up about his opinion. Anybody that disagrees with Meringue's opinion on the coaching staff was an idiot or a moron or a flat earther and basically should shut up, right? So basically, you just got these people that have all these opinions, man, and they'll just spew them. But then anybody with a different opinion or opinion they don't like should just shut up.
Yeah.
And it's funny. Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, we touched on that earlier. Let's
move on.
I kind of took us down that rabbit hole. We're not too deep in the rabbit hole. Let's pull out of the rabbit hole. And what you got next?
Well, we're kind of on this. I'm going to skip ahead to another quote. So, Nurk felt like he was underutilized. He, quote, "I feel that way, but I was just respecting the regime before and try to do what they were asking me of. But that's over, and this is a new era. This is like a new relationship with a girlfriend. So this is a great story for me." And I thought this was going to be relatable to some people, especially one in particular, who I'm not even going to bother mentioning. But if you're in a toxic relationship or with a relationship that with a girl who's stepping out on you or is constantly at your neck or whatever, you just cringe going home, your whole life is affected by that, right? And the difference between that and going home to a girl that you're excited to see or looking forward to spending time with, and you're not like worried about if the cops are going to get called that night or if something else is going to happen. Yeah. So I just I just think like emotionally, he's just going to be in such a better place.
Yep, I agree. I agree.
I think that was a joke, but
yeah, I unhit him. I just got it.
Okay.
I was like, yeah, yeah. So sorry. I literally like 5 seconds after I was like, oh, I see the tie-in. I see the tie-in, man. I had to hide somebody earlier just because they were being toxic, and I thought it was like, I don't know, the same sort of stuff. But I get the joke, man. Yeah, I don't know. The comments on videos and occasionally in streams lately has just been a little toxic. Like, I don't know. There's been occasional comments that I'll highlight that have just been kind of toxic. So I'm on the edge, so that's my bad, Aeromancer. If that was a joke, I unhid your account. He probably didn't even notice that I hit it, bro. But like, if somebody was seriously in here telling me to shut up and telling me what I need to talk about, like, if that was not a joke, then yeah, I'd have a problem with that. But I get the joke, so all good. Watch him come back and say, no, I was serious. He says, everyone here is great, and I love you all. Yeah. So my apologies. Anyway, where were we?
Keep girlfriend going. Comment. Do you want to
the
talk
girlfriend
about?
Comment? Girlfriends. Yes, I love talking about girlfriends, man. It just makes me so happy to talk about girlfriends. Did you see my tweet today?
Which one?
The one I was in a coffee shop.
Oh, were you? Yeah.
This girl's just like staring at me, and I don't know why, because I was, wearing basketball shorts and this t-shirt, and just, I don't know. It wasn't staring at me and a girl. She was just looking at me. I don't know why. And I saw her looking at me, and I was just like, she's looking at me, and we like locked eyes, and then I immediately walked over like a caution wet floor sign, and just kick it.
At least you didn't slip and fall, I guess.
I did it. I don't even know why I was there, because it wasn't even wet there. Oh my goodness, like that was bad. So yeah, I set my drink down on her table, picked the sign up, put it back, grabbed my drink, walked away. So yeah, I love talking about girls, man. Guys, it's just the perfect day. But hey, honestly, if you ever do something like that, you just got to think of it like, wow, that's a funny thing that happened to me. Like, I don't know, just laugh at it. So I wasn't even embarrassed. I was just like, oh my God. If I should have just blamed her. I should have been like, why are you looking at me, making me walk over this sign? Anyway, let's shut up and talk basketball. The girlfriend comments. Your mom says, what girlfriends? Reread the Nurkic comment so she knows what we're truly talking about.
He says, I felt underutilized. I was just respecting the regime before and try to do what they were asking of me, but that's over and this is a new era. This is like a new relationship with a girlfriend, so this is a great story for me.
Yeah. Yep. So like a new relationship with the girlfriend, great story for him. Yeah. I mean, I don't really know what to say to that. Yeah. My mind's in different places right now, so keep going. Give me some a little bit more.
Billups also, something that's been echoing in Nurkic's head since the conversation was come ready. Just come ready.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's get into this. There's an interesting part about Billups. I really like this a lot. So Billups actually part of that spring where he was in the camp with Tyronn Lue trying to learn coaching, I guess they ran plays and stuff like that, and Billups wanted to run them from every position so he could figure out more than just knowing it from the point guard position. He wanted to be like, know what the center sees or whatever. And his conclusion was that the center has the most work to do pretty much on the court. They are pretty much always, well, in Nurkic's case, he's almost always the pick and roll guy, right, on offense. So he's always having to set the pick and roll and do stuff there. And then on defense, it's usually the center that they're trying to exploit in the pick and roll. So they're using their big to exploit him on. So he's involved basically in the pick and roll on both ends of the court. And then you also have to still rebound at a good rate. You have to finish shots. You have to do other stuff on the court. So Billups actually thinks the center spot is a lot more difficult, and he thinks that that's a position that is very taxing to play, and that it gave him a newfound respect for centers. And I think that it goes against the whole centers in the modern era are useless type of thing, and I like that a lot.
Yeah. I don't really have anything to say against that about that other than the whole centers aren't valuable thing is weird to me, because a lot of the people that say it also say, oh, well, we're too small. Centers don't matter, but we're also too small. So I don't get that. You have to utilize a center correctly, and it's sort of a situation where you have to be more aggressive on pick and rolls because guards are getting so getting so good off of pick and rolls. So like a guy like a Canner or sluggish big men aren't as valuable as they used to be because they can't aggressively play pick and roll defense. But Nurkic isn't that type of guy. Nurkic is mobile enough to definitely trap or hedge or do that type of stuff, right? I feel like people overestimate how hard it is to do that stuff and act like a guy like Nurkic can't. Which he definitely can, and there's some other bigs, like a Zeller definitely can, you know what I mean? That's why Zeller is, he's only on a minimum contract, but he was a starter last year for a team that almost made the playoffs and would have maybe made the playoffs if they were able to stay healthy. So it's a situation where it's like the center position still matters. You just have a certain type of center that is getting phased out of the league, and that is, guys like Enes Kanter, maybe you could say like a guy like Hassan Whiteside, but I think he can trap and whatnot, and he just chases too many blocks. That's a different issue with him. But you just end up with these more sluggish centers getting phased out of the league because it's mostly because in the playoffs, if you have them playing up on pick and rolls against guards, they get exposed.
Yep. And then an interesting note on the record of our team in Nurk's 5 seasons with the Blazers, or a little over 5 seasons. The Blazers are 135-81 when he plays, and 85-91 when he hasn't.
And that's without fully utilizing him.
Yeah. And that's a .625 winning percentage in games that he has played, which equates to a 51 win pace over a season.
Yeah, 51 win season at 82 games. I mean...
And that's with all the problems elsewhere.
Yeah, and I think our roster is better than, it has been. So, utilize Nurkic better, roster's better, bench is a lot better. You don't have the Melo Canner pairing, and you have Billups, and we win at a 50 win pace with Nurkic already. Then, I mean, there's a lot to look forward to. And I know some people just can't get over the not trading CJ thing, but I feel like there's a lot that you can look at and be encouraged of. Mm-hmm. And we're all freaking out about, we lost in the first round against an injured Denver team. Our starting lineup wasn't the issue in that series. Even despite playing in a bad system, there's still like a plus 40-something, almost a plus 50. Mm-hmm. And then Canner would come in with Melo. Stotts wouldn't stagger them, wouldn't change up the rotation, it would sub both of them in, and then let Canner single cover Jokic without throwing a double his way, and we would get destroyed. And even then, we were like one possession away in Game 5 from going up 3-2 in a double OT game, right? So, I mean, there's a lot to look forward to going into the season. I could see us being like the Utah Jazz from last year. Absolutely. Now, hopefully we don't, if we're the 1 seed, hopefully we don't lose in the second round to a team missing their best player like the Jazz did last year, right? That was kind of the issue with them, is it didn't really translate into them making a playoff run.
Yeah. This season's going to be the opposite of last season, I feel like, where teams are going to be like treading water all season, and then the playoffs, they'll get their guys back instead of having guys go out. So you'll have like Kawhi and Murray and there's one more player in the West that I can't. Klay Thompson, yeah, like those kind of guys will come back and be just getting back into like playing shape by the playoffs, and then it's like instead of playing like as the 6th seed against the 3rd seed who has an injured setter or an injured player, we're going to be playing the 6th seed with like their Kawhi back or something, and it's going to be tough.
Yeah, here's the thing though. If we're a true contender, you take what you get and you
I'm not
win.
complaining. Right.
Just like the Suns last year in the first round, they got the Los Angeles Lakers and they took care of business. And then the next round, they had an easier matchup with the Denver Nuggets and swept them. And then they had the Clippers without Kawhi, right? They had their hardest matchup first, but it's like if we're trying to win a championship, here's the problem: if we like lose the 1 seed against an 8th seed Warriors team, like for Dame's situation, it's just not good compared to if we lost to them in the conference finals. So that's kind of one issue with that. But it's like Klay, I don't think will be as good of a defender. I think he'll still be a good, like as good of a shooter. But defensively, I don't expect him to be the like very high caliber defensive player he was. And I don't know if he's just like an okay defender. It's not like he's a top 15 player or anything. Draymond isn't the same Draymond he used to be. Sure, they have some young guys that can step up, but it's like even with Klay in there, like having his legs back, I still think he's going to decline a bit. And that's still not a team that I'd be like, oh yeah, that team's better than us. I mean, they're not the Warriors they used to be. So that'd be a fun playoff matchup, Dame versus Steph, but like us not running drop scheme on Steph like we did in game 1 of the conference finals.
Being more prepared for it.
Yeah, so that is that kind of the one thing. I think the Nuggets will be good enough to avoid. I think they'll probably be a 5th or 6th seed, but I don't even know if Jamal Murray's coming back by the playoffs because he got hurt in April?
I think it was before that. Oh, maybe not because it was right after the trade deadline, right?
Yeah, and the trade deadline was the 25th. So he got hurt like start of April, so that'd be about a year. So he probably won't even have his legs back. And defensively, that's a guy you could just go at. I don't know. It's a thing where like, yeah, you might end up with a bad match, but there's a lot of good teams in the West anyway. It's like if you're not facing them, you're facing, I don't know, the Mavericks or something with Luka. I'd probably rather have that, but still, it's a guy that can put the team on his back, so we'll see. But you've said it on a previous stream, and I've said it. I think we'll be a top 4 seed next year. There's just a lot to look forward to. Any other quotes from this article that you want to
Yeah, so there's a Billups one. Says, I've been on him about things I need from him. I said, Nurk, I know you're going to be a free agent, and I understand you have to have a great year. You need me for you to have a great year, and I need you for us to have a good year. We need each other, right? I'm going to give him every opportunity to have a great year, because if he is a great player, or if he has a great year, that means we are a pretty dang good team because he is a good player. But that means he has to be focused and be in shape because you are only going to play as many minutes as you are physically able. If you are tired out there, come on out, got to get you. There are good players behind you. So I thought there was a lot to unpack there. One being that last comment that Billups feels like this team is really good. We've heard that he is really high on Cody Zeller and feels like he is a capable player as well. So I feel like there's going to be a lot of competition for minutes, and that's going to be a good thing as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. You get a sub in a guy who can play in any pick and roll scheme and can pass and can finish, and there's an energy guy in Cody Zeller. It's not a situation where it's like you have to play Nurk. Like Cody Zeller in a pinch can play 30 minutes if needed, if Nurkic is in foul trouble, and be serviceable enough to help the team win. Whereas if you got a guy like Cantor, he can be serviceable, but especially in the playoffs or against a team that is really good in the pick and roll, it's not going to look good. So that's the difference with the backup center is that's why I think Zeller's an upgrade is because offensively he's a better passer than Kanter was. He's not quite the offensive rebounder, but I mean, if you make more shots, that isn't as useful. And he gets like over 4 per 36 anyway. So Zeller's still a good offensive rebounder. And I mean, he can still finish. He can still score out of the post a little bit. But, like, here's the thing is I want our offense to be predicated on movement where you don't have to rely on just, okay, Kanter, go down and to the block, and we're just going to throw it into you, and hopefully you can make a shot. You know what I'm saying? So there's some people that I feel like don't view that as an upgrade. I think it's definitely an upgrade, especially with us playing a better style of basketball.
Yep. And then there's also so it does get into Nurk being in a contract year and stuff, and he says that's important, but he also said the contract year hasn't gotten me as fired up for basketball as much as Chauncey has. I'd love to hear that as well.
Yep.
Nurk also mentioned something about them playing a different style, a more inside-out game. That is music to my ears because I feel like that's one of the toughest things to stop is when a team can play inside out.
Yeah, and inside out doesn't necessarily mean just like throwing it into the post all the time and then playing off. It could mean that, but mostly it's let's attack the rim, let's have cutters to the rim that you feed and then play off of them. You know, if the defense rotates to a backdoor cutter, then kick out and just basically play with the mindset of we're going to attack the rim. And then if you take that away, you're going to have to commit a lot to take that away, and it'll open up shooters for us. And then we'll get good three-point looks out of it.
Well, imagine also when you pass into the post, having action off the ball to create open shooters instead of just like, okay, well,
just passing too.
Here's your post-up touch, like, do something. Like, please score. Please, like, make something happen out of nothing. And this is... People say, like, oh, Dame can't play off ball. Look at him in the Olympics or whatever. But this isn't, like, necessarily playing off ball. It's like you're dribbling the ball up, and then you're giving Nurk into the post, and then you're running, like, a play off of that, and then getting an open shooter. And then with Dame, CJ, Norm, like, there's so many different things you can do there. Rocco was good shooting the three last year as well. So you have 4 3-point shooters in the starting lineup. And then on the bench, you have all this athleticism with an Ant and Nance and Nas and those kind of guys. Cody Zeller's sneaky athletic. So you have all these things you can do throughout the game. And I've always preferred to play inside out. I think it's so much harder to stop or like just completely take someone out of the game when you're playing that way. And so I'm really excited that he mentioned that specifically because that's something that I'd like to see more of. And if you combine that with getting post positions in better spots too, like with running your favorite thing, just a simple cross screen, like stuff like that can also make him more potent as a scorer down low, which means you have to send more help towards him. And then that automatically frees more players. And if not, if he can score consistently one-on-one and get good post position, then that's going to be also like, what does a defense do in that situation? Because you can't really help off of any of our shooters. But if you do, you're dead because Nurk can pass out easily to any one of them. So I've always wanted to play that way. It doesn't make sense that we haven't tried that in the past.
And here's the thing. So the people saying Dame can't play off ball, Alexander Yu had an article on our website. I posted it in chat just now. And it was looking at the way, you know, the types of plays in which Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum score. And the highest points per possession for those two players comes from cuts and spot-ups. And it's simple logic. And I'll just read a quote from Alexander's article. Definitely check out our website. We're launching written content now. And Alexander said, predictably, a well-timed pass paired with a direct cut to the basket usually results in a quick basket or a foul. A spot-up is more likely to be an open look.
Yep.
Which makes perfect sense. And Dame spotting up is in the top, like he's in the top 2%. 98th percentile. spotting up. And that article has their percentiles for a bunch of different play types, so I'm not going to spoil the whole article. That's something you should read if you haven't read it yet.
Dave's good at a lot of things. But
yeah, but like that's the thing is you just the Olympics, which is like a different ball, more physical defense, different three-point line, a bunch of stars trying to coexist. People will try and take that and say, yeah, see, Dame shouldn't be playing off the ball. Which is just ridiculous to me. When, if you take Dame playing in the NBA for the Portland Trail Blazers, he's actually in the top 1.6% in terms of being a spot-up shooter. If you get him more of those shots, and less shots where he's shooting from 30 feet with a hand in his face, I know he can do it, and it's cool when he does, but if you get a more quality spot-up three-point looks, he's a 42-43% three-point shooter. Right? Because he's been right around 38, 39. He was 40% in 2019, 2020. Imagine if you got him easier looks. Because he shot a better percentage on easier looks. So getting him easier looks off the ball is a good thing. And it's crazy that people try and paint it as a bad thing.
Yep.
So definitely go read that article. I posted it in chat if you guys want. That's a great article by Alexander. We have really good written content.
And the article posted today by Shervin in chat there, great article, Shervin. It kind of goes a little deeper into some of the problems the offense has had and why the offense has been deceiving in the past few years, in spite of good offensive rating numbers, why it still hasn't been great. And that leads me into the next quote of this article by Billups, and he's starting to talk about trust, but then he says the offense, I think for the offense to have been as special last year as it was number-wise, even though they were last in the league in assists, last in pushing the ball after misses, is incredible. We have to move that ball. I think that makes us harder to guard, less predictable. We've put together a really good team, deep team in my opinion, with role players that are pretty significant. So moving the ball is going to be a big deal. And that's something we don't really, I mean, we've touched upon it, but that's another hidden thing is not pushing the ball. We slowed the ball up so often. We didn't really get those chances to create mismatches or chaos and stuff like that. We did it like in the preseason last year and it worked well, and then we just went away from it, like letting guys like Giles or Rocco bring the ball up and create confusion. Yeah. So I really like that Billups specifically points out, I know the offense was good, but it's crazy that it was that good, even with all these issues it has. And yeah.
And here's the thing, like in one regular season game, defensively, you're probably not going to game plan as hard as you will in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So that's why, and in Shervin's article, I looked at this, that's why our offense declined in the playoffs, is because we were like, and I said this all year last year, this type of offense can work in the regular season and will be completely fine against mediocre to bad teams, right? What happens against good teams? We really struggled to be good teams last year because our offense wasn't good enough. Well, we also couldn't defend, but, our offense didn't translate to playing really good teams that played physical defense in the regular season, and then it didn't translate to playoffs. And the stats back it up. It's in Shervin's article. That's the second article I linked. So that's the thing, is it might not be much of improvement in the regular season, but if we move the ball more and we move players more and we're much less predictable and we work on getting players higher quality shots, physical defense that is allowed to be played more in the playoffs won't be as effective against our offense. It's, if you're physical against a guy ISOing against you or physical trapping the pick and roll, then you're going to have more success in the playoffs where you're allowed to get away with more than you will in the regular season. Mm-hmm. So it's a situation where moving the ball, moving players, it'll help us in the playoffs. It'll make us harder to guard in the playoffs. Our offense won't fall off like it does from the regular season to the playoffs. Well, so that's the thing, is the regular season improvement, I think, will come from the defense. The postseason improvement, I think, can come from both.
And Shaggy Sweat asked, what if our offense becomes statistically worse? Well, in my mind, the only way for it to be worse is if Dame and CJ stop hitting incredibly hard shots, right? Because
Yeah.
worst case scenario, they're still having to take tough shots, and we're right in the same position we were last year. If they hit those, our offense is basically the same.
Yeah, but here's my response to that. They had the highest points per possession on cuts and spot up shots. If you get them more of their most efficient shots, how is the offense going to be worse? The only way it'd be worse is if their efficiency declines on those types of shots. And that wouldn't be on Chauncey.
Mm-hmm.
That wouldn't be on Chauncey at all. That would be Dame and CJ not being as efficient on their easiest shots,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense. So that's the thing is statistically it makes no sense for the offense to decline if we get them more spot up shots and more cuts to the basket.
Yep.
So,
and then onto the defense. So trust is a really big component with Billups. If you're going to help somebody, you have to trust that somebody is going to help you. That's how our defense is going to be set up. It's going to be a help defense. It's not going to be one-on-one, Dame against Steph, they on an island, and everybody's sitting around watching. We're not going to play that type of defense. So now we have to trust that, and that takes time, especially coming from where they came from.
yeah.
Basically, from a numbers standpoint, there was not a lot of trust there defensively. And once again, love hearing that. It's going to be a system where everyone is expected to play their role and help each other. And there's going to be game plans specifically designed to know where your help defense is going to be. I think we're going to see a lot less of those situations. It made you go crazy, I think, several times last season with the over helpers or the people who help from the wrong position or all that kind of stuff, and it never got corrected years after years after years. And I think we're going to see just so much more locked in stuff like that this year, and that's going to, I mean, even if overall our defense doesn't improve that much, it will still improve organically just from doing little things like that.
Yep, 100%.
And then one of the biggest things of this article is that Nurkic is already in Portland. He got back a full 2 weeks before training camp even started. We all remember last year where he came in like right around the start of training camp and then had to go through protocols and stuff. So he didn't even participate in the first few days. And then there was the one of the coaches got it or something, and they had to shut down the training facility for a couple days or whatever. And and he had a horrible off season with some stuff that happened in Bosnia. Read the article if you want to find out more about that. But like, he looks ripped in some pictures. Like, he looks in incredible shape, as does Jokic, by the way. But he looks like he is. It's not like the season after Nurk Fever where he came in all skinny and it looked like he had just done a ton of cardio. Like, this season, he looks ready to play, and he looks like he's going to be a physical monster out there.
Yeah. Yep. And he's been working on his shot. His shot looks good.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll make it easier. Like, we're talking about playing inside out, but then we're also talking about Nurkic shooting more threes. But, I mean, trailing the break, if he's open, if he's able to knock that down at a 36% clip, 37% clip, I mean, that's efficient offense. And it makes defenders have to stay out on him when he's at the top of the key, which makes it easier for him to hit cutters. It gives cutters more room underneath that. So it's a situation where you can mix it up and run some pick and pop as well as some pick and roll with him, just to keep the defense honest. You know, they don't know what Nurkic is going to do. So I don't want him jacking up a ton of threes, but him being able to knock down threes at a good enough clip will be a good thing for the offense.
Yep. And if he does just enough there, it opens up that inside-out game that we talked about so much more too, or that when he gets the ball in those short rolls, if you have to charge at him because he couldn't knock out those shots. then you just take a step in or a dribble after the defender flies by you, and you have passing lanes open. And if you have cutters and stuff, Nurk can find open people all day.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if he's able to shoot well enough from three where guys will run him off the line, and then B, if he gets ran off the line, is he able to pump fake, rip through, attack, and be effective in that sort of way? Because we haven't seen him do much off the dribble in the half court.
Well, to me, I don't know if he'll ever be like that type of player where he puts it on the floor in that type of situation. But the one thing it does do, if they trap Dame and he passes Nurkic pops, there has to be one of the other three defenders has to come out on him, right? So even if they don't fly by him, theoretically, if you are aggressive in those situations, you have that 4-on-3 advantage that we've always talked about. So now it comes into play where if they double team Dame, you give it to Nurk, he's a threat to shoot a three, so you have to get out on him fast. And you have a cutter, whoever's guy comes out on him instantly cuts or instantly moves and spots up to three or whatever, and Nurk knows where he's going to be. That should be an easy, wide open basket every time. And that's why teams kill us when we do those traps. And then Stotts is like, well, I tried it, but it didn't work. Because teams know how to exploit that usually. And if you keep doing that enough, then they're going to think twice about trapping Dame. And what's going to happen if teams can't trap Dame? That's going to be unreal for Dame's efficiency and just the way he goes about things. So nothing but good can come from him being able to draw the defense out and us attacking that situation.
Yep. All right. How many?
That was pretty much it from the article.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that was a great article. And for the people that come away from that just feeling negative, it's just crazy to me. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't see how you come away with a negative feeling from that article, man.
What's funny is it's all people who really love Stotts. So.
Yeah. I mean, I was ready to move past that, but that'll still be a thing.
Yeah,
this year.
Sure.
But, I mean, I'd rather, we'll be on the happy side of it. We'll flip sides, I guess. People are going to be sad that Stotts is gone, and people are going to be happy that Billups is here. I'll choose happy that Billups is here. So, yeah, and it's just lots of intrigue going into next season. Makes things really intriguing. There's so much intrigue. That's the thing is, same roster. But, I mean, we got Nance and we got Zeller in the rotation. And, Snell is the least flashiest player in the league. And McLemore isn't a flashy, you know what I mean? So it's okay, you only have two new intriguing players, right? So you think, going into the season, two new intriguing players is boring. It's the same old. The type of basketball I expect just to be completely different. And that creates so much intrigue for me. And that'll be fun to cover. Mm-hmm. And we will cover that. It's just I was telling somebody this in person the other day, just talking about the channel. It's for the first time, I'll be able to talk about look at these things that we're doing instead of look at these are things that we should be doing.
Right.
In the past 2 years, it's we should be doing this, we should be doing this, we're not doing it. Now I feel we'll finally be able to talk about games on our post-game shows where I can point out stuff look at what we did on this possession. Look at this set we drew up. Look at this lob we drew up for Nas. Did you see when we started trapping how good Nurkic looked stepping out? And then when we switched up our coverage, they looked off balance. You know what I mean? We're going to be able to... The stuff that we were saying we should be doing in the past, I feel we're going to finally be able to talk about us actually doing it and actually seeing it out on the court.
Mm-hmm.
Which is dope.
Just because Dave B brought it up in chat earlier. We've talked about this several times, but a lot of you may not have heard it or have been watching recently and didn't watch when Billups was first hired. We addressed this a lot, the issue with the allegations. It's possible for us to know what actually happened that night. So the only thing we can do is focus on what happened on the basketball court or what happens on the basketball court and what he does as a coach. So we're going to focus on those things. We're not ignoring or pretending like that didn't happen or he's 100% innocent or anything like that. But it just does no good for us to sit here and continually bring it up and talk about it. So we're hoping that's not really a storyline. We want to talk about basketball and what's happening on the court. So we'll just speak about that. And like I said, we're not ignoring it. It's just there's really no point in constantly bringing it up.
Yep. So anything else you want to touch upon?
Nope, I think covered all of it.
Yeah, this is almost a 2-hour stream. Sorry, this has been a really good stream. Lots of good discussion. Didn't expect it to be a 2-hour stream, but we've done a good job in the month of September when things have been pretty dead at getting stream topics and just having good conversations about them. So
Media Day is a week from today.
Yeah, I think we're doing a lot better than we did
last year.
Yeah, at this time last year, man, we were struggling. But I mean, maybe it's a little easier this year. I don't know. But we've had a lot of good conversations on this stream.
Just the difference in changing coaching, because I mean, you can only bring up all our points about how that sucks and it's going to cost us the season so many times.
True. Okay. Yeah, that's probably
just having a new coach and all these fun things to talk about and be excited about. Every time he opens his mouth, he says something that's just like, oh my goodness, did he really say that? Is this really going to happen, Tori? Are we really going to see this team play the way we want them to play?
Yeah, I might go watch that video I posted before the start of last season. The one about like Stotts is finally going to change things mark video and just sit there and just laugh.
Cringe.
But,
you got fooled.
Yeah, just laughing myself like, you moron, you thought he was going to change just because he said he would. Yeah, right. But if just speaking of videos, make sure to check out that schedule breakdown. We'll be live again on Thursday. I'm going to try and at this point, I'll probably only upload one player video tomorrow, but I'm going to start churning those out. Those will be a lot easier than the schedule breakdown, which took a lot of time. So, player videos, I'm not going to do the training camp players or Trent Watford tour player. I'm just going to focus on players that are actually on the roster. And as far as like training camp conversations around those guys, we'll talk about them on post-game shows and whatnot. So, we'll definitely cover them, and we've talked about them in streams here in the past. So that's going to be 13 videos coming up for you guys, focusing on specific players with statistical goals and how they should be used and stuff like that. So that should be a good series. Make sure to check out those articles on the website and definitely support our writers. They have some really good stuff, and it's exciting to be able to get that stuff out there, and I'm looking forward to the website being a thing this season, so definitely show them some support, share articles with other Blazer fans if you want to, and whatnot. Other things to plug.
Should have an article out tomorrow about 3 Blazer players poised for a breakout season. Spoiler alert, someone we talked about for most of the show is on there.
Yep, and I will publish my 12 key games for next year. That kind of accompanies my schedule video, so we'll stagger those releases. I'll do mine in the morning, and then you want to do yours in the evening? Or do that article in the evening, Eric?
Sure, I don't think it matters too much. But...
So in the morning, in the morning or around noon, I'll drop that 12 key games article, focusing on 12 individual matchups. And then Eric will... Who's that article by?
That is by Connor McIntosh.
Connor McIntosh, yeah. So we'll get... That's his first article, isn't it?
Yeah.
Cool. So we'll get Connor's work up on there. So video tomorrow. 2 articles tomorrow. So we got you covered with the content. And then Wednesday we'll have another player video. I'm going to be basically doing these daily, and maybe another article, we'll see. And then Thursday another stream, and that is the plan. Thursday will probably be a shorter stream. I don't know what we'll talk about, but we'll figure something out, just like we've done for every one of these streams. Shout out Bailey Smith, $2 sticker donation on set chair sticker. Are you saying that's the type of chair I should get? Are you guys tired of hearing this one creak every now and then?
Get some WD-40 or something.
I'd rather just get a new chair at that point. So anything else left to plug?
Thanks, Bailey. Yeah, Zach has an article as well coming in the next few days about the storylines for heading into preseason.
Yep. So we'll have you covered with a lot of written content coming up. So hopefully you enjoy that. Romancer says you should dedicate an entire stream to talking about Tony Snell. I'm dedicating a whole video to him, and I think that's probably enough.
Yeah.
So with that, that's going to be a wrap for this stream. Thank you for tuning in. If you've watched this whole thing, this whole 2-hour stream, shout out to you for hanging out with us for the past couple hours. We will have more to cover in Thursday's stream. Don't know what, but we'll figure it out. Anything you want to leave off with, Eric, before I sign off?
Just appreciate everyone for watching. Thank you so much. And we'll catch you next time.
Yep, we will catch you on Thursday. Follow Blazers Upres on Twitter at Blazers Upres YT so you know when articles and videos are dropping. And that's a wrap. So until next time, have a good week. We will see you Thursday. As always, peace out. Go Blazers.